Hello, everyone. Brother Al McClaney with this week's stewardship video. And as always, before we go too far, no advice should be seen as a recommendation or endorsement. I'm not a licensed financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. You want to do your own research or utilize someone you may have hired and utilizing in that role. Well, Happy New Year, everyone. It's 2026. Got to get used to saying 2026 and writing 2026 on any documents that we have. And I'm not into New Year's resolutions, but I'm definitely into goal setting. And this year's theme and goal for me is going to be around the word waste. And I want to use John 6, verses 12 through 13. Living Bible says, "Now gather the scraps," Jesus told his disciples, "so that nothing is wasted." And 12 baskets were filled with the leftovers. The New Living Translation says, "After everyone was full, Jesus told his disciples, 'Now gather the leftovers so that nothing is wasted.'" So they picked up the pieces and filled 12 baskets with scraps left by the people who had eaten from the five barley loaves. And the backdrop of this is Jesus feeding the thousands. And here's the creator of the world, the provider for all of us. And he's saying, don't leave anything wasted, because Jesus could have just miraculously created more, but he is practicing good stewardship. And if Jesus is saying you need to be good stewards and not waste anything, then who am I? So the theme, as I said, for me for 2026 is looking at all the subscriptions that I have. And there's a whole business that's been built around it called Rocket Money. I'm not endorsing that, but I know my wife utilized it, the free version, this week. We talked about some subscriptions she didn't even know she had out there. And so for me, we've been talking about it in previous last 90 days about not eating out and cutting back on the Starbucks, uh, just being a good steward. And this is what I'm looking at for 2026, because there are subscriptions out there that I don't even utilize. And it's that fear of missing out, FOMO, thinking that, oh, if I drop that just subscription, then there's a possible opportunity I may miss. And there's a great line from a movie called Sabrina, where she says to the person, sometimes more is not better, sometimes more is just more. And that's what I'm looking at for 2026. And there's another uh, idea from the Message Bible I thought that was pretty powerful about when you don't invest, that's a form of waste. So Luke chapter 19, verses 20 to 23 in the Message Bible says, "The next servant said, 'Master, here's your money safe and sound. I kept it hidden in the cellar. To tell you the truth, I was a little afraid. I know you have high standards and hate sloppiness and don't suffer fools gladly.' And the master said to him, he said, 'You're right that I don't suffer fools gladly, and you've acted the fool. Why didn't you at least invest the money in security so that I would have gotten a little interest on it?'" So the Lord is saying not being opportunistic in at least putting money in the bank to get interest is foolish. And it's also, for me, I'm looking at it, it's wasteful. And so this year, again, my theme, not a New Year's resolution, but a goal or a theme, is to continue, like, don't want to do the eating out, want to cut back on Starbucks, and then looking at all the areas that I may be wasting money on things that I'm not even utilizing. That includes, for a lot of us, and that includes me, gym membership. So it's going to be one of those things. If I don't use it, lose it, right? Just you could always restart it, but just go ahead and drop it and move on. So with that, I also want to include, to help again, I've attached these two um, newsletters that I pay for and I do use, right? The January edition and the December edition, the one that's called your 10 most important financial moves for 2026. And then the other one for January, do you have in place the one financial essential for the new year? So these two are attached. You can just download them, they're PDFs, and utilize them. And let's change gears. We know we're now starting to get into earning season. This first week, full week of January, is not anything that's going to be huge though. The only thing I see out there is Albertsons. Other than that, these are not even really companies that I know, But we know coming up the week after, here's the full month of January or the next 2 weeks of January. Then we start getting to the week of the 12th. That's when the big earnings will start because that's going to be closing out not only the fourth quarter, but also year to date for 2025. So you can see, and we always kick it off as normally with the financial companies reporting. So be looking forward to that. And here's something to just generate how we closed out the year. Um, Everything this year was in the positive. The only two areas were XLP, staples, and real estate. And this could generate some ideas for going into 2026, as you can use what they call a Dow, dogs of the Dow, where you look at sectors that were down for the year or stocks that were down for the year and invest in those. And so here's a couple of ideas that I thought about. Again, do your own research. Look at staples. So here's XLP. That's a exchange traded fund that's in the consumer staples area. And here are the companies. You could either do the exchange traded fund or do the individual companies. Here's XLRE. This is in the energy field. I mean, sorry, real estate field, and that's the exchange traded fund symbol. And here's the different companies that make that up. And so that is an idea. And next week, we're going to look at some other ones that are in this area because God's pressing on my heart, and we'll see if it's still I'm still reading that the right way next week to look at diversity and see maybe that could be a theme for you this year. But here's how we closed out the year. You can see, and this is just also includes Friday, which was the first training day of December, I mean, of January. But you can see for the year overall, 2025 had some dips, but overall finished strong. If you stayed in from the very beginning to the end, you're quite happy with how things turned out. In fact, if you go back and look year to date, the S&P was up 16%. So if you're above 16%, winner, winner, chicken dinner, as we say in trading, and you're probably pretty happy with your 401k, 401k. And then SPY, same thing, mirror image of QQQ. So that's this week's stewardship video. And want to wish you, hopefully you had a great, happy new year. We're going into 2026, exciting times because we'll be starting into earnings. Also, any type of, you may call them New Year's resolutions. I call them goals for this year. And for me, it's concentrating and focusing on waste and continuing on of the, cutting back on the eating out, cutting back on the Starbucks, making that coffee at work. Those of you can go back and look at that video, and just being a good steward, someone's pleasing to the Lord. And from as always, as we typically end, remember Jesus is Lord. Therefore, He is the owner and the head and lead of our lives, but we have the important goal of being the faithful steward or the manager of the resources that he has blessed us with. And so we'll see you next week.